Hey, John here. Let's take a quick look at something I'm thinking about pushing out here. Take a quick diff. The way I'm using dumpfile here. Let's take a closer look at this today. A big thanks to everybody that subscribes to my channel, thumbs up, and my Patreons, especially the VIPs listed here. Thank you very much. All right, here's a quick one. This is a diff. I'm about to commit and push this out on one of my projects that I'm doing here. And what happens is when I evolve a project, let's look at the Git status here. When I evolve a project that I'm working on, quite often I'll have a directory filled with a bunch of Verilog files, and I'll put some test benches in there along with them and organize it a little bit like this. So you've got a sprite.v file and then a test bench to go along with it. And for most of the things I create, I do have a test bench that matches it. And I have recently been refactoring a couple of files right here. And when I'm doing this, sometimes I'll copy an old test bench or an old file to a new one maybe, and I'll copy an old test bench over to a new file, to get the overall template structure in there, delete the guts out of it, and then fill it in for, whatever the new tests are going to be. And I find it, a little bit annoying if you have many objects in one directory, many Verilog files, or more in particular, many test benches in one directory. You find that this is going to happen. If I want to run one test bench versus another one and so on, now I suppose each one of the individual test benches, and we're looking at a diff here, so here's this one of the test benches for one of the files in this path, and it creates this value change dump file. That's the thing that fills in with all the values that get plotted. In my case, I just run it in a GTK wave, and I can see the waveform from the test bench coming out of it. When I copy a file to a new one, I got to remember to go in there and change this every time. And I find that annoying after a while. Now, if we use a feature that's available in System Verilog, which, I've been writing regular Verilog, and I've explained before that a lot of code on the internet these days still is just regular Verilog, and I want to make sure that any of my, viewers understand how to use code that they find on the internet. So I've been so far kind of focusing on just Verilog, plain Verilog, System Verilog is just a newer version. Verilog, the last official release, I think was in 2005. And System Verilog is just simply the Verilog release that came out in 2008, and so on. All right, they decided to rename it to confuse everybody, as far as I can tell. So, what I'm about to tell you, this double underscore file stuff here is a System Verilog thing that is generally well supported, even in regular Verilog, unless you've got a compiler with a flag on it that says strictly conform to 2005 or something like that, then this would not be allowed. Although you could always add this on the command line and say define it, and accomplish what I'm about to describe another way, or even use a different name if you want to. The short of it is, because I'm using Icarus, and if you go to the Icarus, website and you read about, what it supports and how all this stuff works, it'll go on to explain that it does support some System Verilog features like this macro that's predefined by the simulator, because remember, Icarus is just a simulator, when it compiles and runs your code. So if it defines this macro, and it does, what it will define it as is the name of the file that's being compiled, which is that, or more accurately, it's this, which is the same thing, right? It's by my convention, what I do is if I have a test bench, I create a dump file, which is the same name as the source code, as the file containing the test bench, okay? And I put VCD after it. Well, if it ends in a .v, And this macro here is provided by Icarus. What it's doing is it's providing the name of the file that's being compiled or simulated in place of this macro, which is this here. So if I concatenate it, remember if you use the curly braces around multiple variable names, it just takes all the bits in whatever this is, and then all the bits in whatever this is, and so on, and it smushes them all together into one giant binary blob. Now it turns out this is a string, and in Verilog that's just a whole bunch of 8-bit values all together in one large binary sequence of bits, I should say, as is this. That's a 16-bit value. That in ASCII is the C and a D, whatever that turns out to be. All right, so if I say concatenate this with that, what it's going to do is it's going to create this. All right, and because I'm going to put that in my test bench file, if I ever make a copy of this or rename it or something, it turns out the next time I run it with Icarus, this will be a different value. It'll just go to the new name. So if I were to then copy this test bench, where am I? I am in this FPGA directory. So this is the name of the file relative to where I'm at. I think I've talked about this on my channel before. It's one of the libraries for a project I'm working on. If I was to make a copy of this test bench, I don't need to mess with this. But if I hard code the whole value in here, then I do. And I almost invariably forget to do so. So what I wanted to do is just make sure everybody sees this. I think it's a pretty good idea. It goes towards, project management and planning ahead, because quite often I'll want to just copy this out of here when I make a new test bench out of an existing one. All right, because I'm going to pretty much this gets reused in anything that's got a clock and stuff like that. Sometimes there's some fun stuff down here I might want to copy as well. But if you're going to do this sort of thing, and you're going to fill up a directory with many test benches, and you want to be able to have, multiple ones around, because when I run this test bench, it'll create an fsmtb.vcd file. And when I run, say, this one here, it'll run a VDP fsngfx.vcd and so on, and they'll all go in. They all have a place to go. And I don't have to manually name all the darn files like I did over here. All right, so I'm going to push this thing out. And I just wanted everybody to see this. I think it's a good idea. If you think it's a bad idea, let me know in the comments below. Or is there a better way to manage a project and all of its related test benches than what I'm, evolving here? Because project management to me is like, 50% or more of the battle of getting all this stuff to work. How do I manage all these modules? How do I build it? How do I test it? Get all the framework is what it's all about. Quite often that'll make or break you. And, by the time you're done with a project, you may have something that could never be maintained. You could never share it with anybody because, if it's full of welded on things that just, you move it to a new directory and it no longer works or it no longer builds. You use hard-coded paths in your make files or scripts or whatever. That just makes it really, I like the word brittle when you do things that way, all right? This is a self-configuring kind of an idea. So I just thought I'd throw this out there, a real quick one today, as a technique that I've decided I'm going to start using more often. I think it's a pretty good idea. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.